I am fat. I am not good at exercising. I don't like going to the gym. All of those I's become your identity. Today we're going to talk about something really important that I don't think most people think about when it comes to achieving greater results, whether it be in their business, whether it be in their relationship, but it's something that is such a pivotal part of the human experience and a pivotal part of your life that it's so much intertwined with who you are as a person that you probably don't even think about this. And that is their identity. How people identify themselves has such an influence on the results that they do or don't get within their own life. And it really blows my mind that most people don't think about how they identify themselves and whether that matches their expectations, whether that matches their mission, whether that matches their goals, and whether that matches the direction that they want their life to go towards. So let's give an example. If you've got someone who identifies as a drug addict, do you know how hard it is for that person to actually break that addiction? Not because it's hard to break an addiction, but because they keep identifying as a drug addict. Just like if you identify as someone who is driven, you'll probably be a driven person. If you identify as someone who is highly successful, then you'll probably be highly successful. If you're someone who identifies as someone who never gets opportunities, who has this past victimization where you can never get out of it, and it's the past story and it's all these other people that are stopping you from getting what you want in life, then that's your identity. That's how you identify as a human being, as an individual. And because of that, it's going to prevent you from getting the results that you want. So here's a little task. My recommendation is to spend a little bit of time and grab a pen and paper and write down what you identify as and keep adding to it over the next week or the next month. And so you might identify yourself as being successful. And then 3 days later, you might identify yourself as a procrastinator. Well, you probably procrastinate a lot or think that you procrastinate a lot because you keep identifying yourself as a procrastinator. And so you want to keep writing down all the statements that start with I am. So I am normally creates an identity. So when you say I am driven or I have, or anything with an I in it. Now, this isn't silly affirmations, okay? Now, affirmations do and don't work. It depends on how you use them. I don't think they're taught well in most cases. You know, in order to have an affirmation, you have to believe that it's true. So if you don't believe that it's true, it's not really an affirmation because an affirmation affirms something that you believe to be true. So when someone's fat and they go and read an affirmations book and they go, I am skinny, I am skinny, I am skinny, that's not an affirmation. Your real affirmation is I am fat, yet you are trying to delude yourself into thinking that you're skinny, thinking that it's going to get you results because someone else has told you that that's how it works and it doesn't. So what you identify as is already your affirmation. So if you think the world's a shitty place, then that's probably the world that you see. If you think that you always struggle and everything's hard for you, then that's probably the opportunities in the world that you live in. So my recommendation is anytime you use the word I and you catch yourself doing this throughout the day, you go, you know, I'm always late, then you identify as someone who is always late. That's part of your identity. That is one of the hardest things to break for most people. Now, if you know what you're doing, you've got the right tools, then you can crack those patterns pretty quickly. But the first thing is you have to be self-aware. And so the task that I've given you is a self-awareness task to start to make yourself aware of how you identify yourself, because that identity reinforces your patterns of behavior. It creates your affirmations, which are the words that you say to yourself. It's the language that you speak to yourself and others. You know, I was with someone a couple of weeks ago. I said to them, come and exercise. I've got a gym at my house. And they said, nah, I'm a fat bastard. You don't want someone like me there. And I said, dude, what are you doing? They stopped and they said, what do you mean? They didn't even know that they said it. And I said, stop calling yourself a fat dude or a fat bastard or whatever you want to call yourself. Stop doing that, because that's not who you want to identify with. If you don't want to identify with being the fat guy, then stop identifying yourself as the fat guy. And he sort of stopped and he looked a bit shocked. I don't like sitting around and listening to people identify themselves as being things that don't work for them. So when I'm around people who say things like, I always do this, like I always self-sabotage, or I always procrastinate, I stop them and I hold them accountable to that languaging. And I'll say, so you always do it. That's all you ever do, is you only do that one thing. And they go, oh, well, not always. And I go, well, then stop saying always, because that language that you use reinforces your pattern of behavior and your identity. Stop doing it. Now, this is why the first part of growth is always self-awareness. Now, we all have times where we have awareness and we all have times where we lack self-awareness. But the more someone lacks self-awareness and the more someone lacks just awareness in general, the more pain they're going to have and the more they're going to suffer. Suffering is normally a byproduct of a lack of self-awareness and a lack of awareness in general. Pain is inevitable. We always have pain, but that tells us where we need to grow. So if you have pain in any area of your life, the first thing that I would do is to stop, reflect a little bit, and then to start to figure out how you identify with that area of life. It's highly probable that that area that you're struggling with is an area that you identify as not being good at, or that you self-talk or self-depreciate in. E.g., if you're someone who struggles with your health, you'll say things like, my health is always bad, and that becomes part of your identity. So your identity is, I have poor health. That I have poor health is what you identify as. I am fat. I am not good at exercising. I don't like going to the gym. All of those I's become your identity, and it's your identity that will keep you trapped in a box that you're trying to get out of.